Thank you for being with me today. I'm really honored and happy to have the pastor of my church on today to speak with us about his efforts to spread the Word of God to the greater Dallas community and out into the world through their mentoring of young priests. So welcome, Bishop Burton, to our show today.
David, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and you have just had a successful Easter.
We have. It's been quite the thing. We've had service after service after service, and we've had thousands and thousands go through our doors, and we're kind of tired, but feeling really good about it.
Well, one of the most wonderful things I went to was this Saturday night Easter Vigil that you all had, and I think one of the most powerful parts of it, and really kind of something that people may not expect, is to baptize adult new Christians into the faith as part of the Easter Vigil, which really comes to the heart of Christianity, bringing people in to relationship with God.
It is the most amazing service because, and it's probably the oldest service that any church performs anywhere. It goes right back to the very early Christians. And it kind of tries to summarize within one service the whole of the Christian faith. And so it starts off in the dark, in a completely darkened church, and then there's a fire which is lit. And that symbolizes God's creating of the world. And they light the Easter candle. The whole idea is that everything in all of creation leads up to Jesus Christ. And it kind of goes through, you read these wonderful lessons from the Old Testament about God's creation of the world in 7 days. You read about the valley of dry bones, all these ways in which God through history has led his people and brought new life to people. And of course, right in the middle of the service is this wonderful baptism service in which people profess their faith and are baptized into it. And then it goes on, and it goes from Lent, which is where we're kind of been concentrating, largely leading up to Jesus' crucifixion at Calvary, and then all of a sudden, at one moment in the service, all the lights come on, and the minister says, "Christ is risen," and the whole congregation says, "He's risen." And everybody has bells, and they ring their bells for about a minute and sing, "Jesus Christ is risen today." It's really a terrific event.
So if you're watching and you haven't got a place that you're planning for Easter next year, I know we just finished Easter, but please think about coming to Incarnation for this wonderful Easter Vigil service next year.
It's always the evening before Easter morning.
The evening before, so you can go to your mainstream or other church for Easter morning service, but experience this very rich, meaningful church experience. And of course, you're welcome this coming Sunday as we celebrate the Easter season, which is so great. Now, what do you think really sets the Episcopal Church apart from so many churches that people may have visited and not really found it as a really heartfelt home?
I mean, what's really interesting, and I think it's in some respects unique about the Episcopal Church, is that it's a sort of a Reformed Catholic church. It's a church which wasn't actually founded by any powerful figure. You know, there was no Martin Luther, there was no John Calvin, there was no individual, Joseph Smith, say, or something, who sort of set up a church all on his own. This is a church which goes right back to the apostles. So it goes back, some people think, oh, well, it was founded by Henry VIII or something like that. In actual fact, that church existed at least in the 200s. We think the faith was brought probably by Roman soldiers from Rome. St. Alban was one of the very earliest of all the Christian martyrs. He was martyred in England. Though we're not sure, it could have also been brought by Irish monks, who came over from Ireland in a leather boat. One thing we do know as a fact is that very early in the 300s, there was a big church meeting in Arles in France, and we know there was an Archbishop of Canterbury, an Archbishop of York, and various other British bishops were there. So we knew by about the second decade of the 300s that there was a fully formed church in England. So it goes right back to the early days. But unlike the Roman Catholic Church, it had a very thoroughgoing Reformation in the 1500s. And so it was actually in the Episcopal Church that the liturgy was first translated into English. And of course, all the English language Bibles that we know today, famously the King James Bible, those all come from the Episcopal Church.
The Anglican Church, which became the Episcopal
Yes,
Church.
because its roots were in the Church of England. we had a little unpleasantness around the Revolution in 1776, and being known as the Church of England was not really a kind of great selling point in those days. So it changed its name to the Episcopal Church. A little rebranding at that point.
Well, and for people that are not aware, I mean, one of the things that I find so rich about coming to an Episcopal church service is reciting the liturgy and renewing our faith every Sunday and praying for others in a very deliberate, methodical way, and also confessing our sins, which I think is we share with the Catholic Church, but we have the advantage of we have more priests because we allow our priests to be married.
Well, that's true. I mean, I remember there was a funny old book written a long time ago called The Liturgy in the Bible, and it was written by a character called Henry Ives Bailey, and he went through the services of the Episcopal Church from the famous Book of Common Prayer, and he found that almost every single line that gets said in the service is actually pulled directly from the Bible. So the service that we use is kind of the Bible rearranged. There is actually, Episcopal services are the most biblical services of any church. Almost every single word is pulled directly from the text of the Bible.
Well, and you have 3 Bible readings during the traditional service that really bring a lot of scripture into the service.
It's a deeply scriptural tradition, and it's always taken the word very, very seriously. At the same time, it's a little bit different from, like, if you go to a non-denominational church, it'll be a reading and then a very, very long sermon, and then maybe some prayers and some hymns, and that's it. In the Episcopal Church, you have all this Bible all the way through from the very beginning, through the actual lessons read, through the preaching, and then typically you go into the Lord's Supper or the Holy Communion, where you remember Jesus' supper with the apostles the night before he died.
Right, and that's so meaningful and something that many people don't get to experience, the richness of recommemorating Jesus' Last Supper to his disciples, where he really involved them personally in his ministry.
Very much so. And of course, this was, if you look in there are lots of signs for it in the New Testament, and also in some of the early church documents. You see this was how the early Christians actually celebrate. I mean, that's what they did on Sundays. They had the Eucharist every Sunday.
Yeah, well, and it's a wonderful experience, and that means so much to me to participate in Holy Communion every Sunday. I really don't feel like I've been to church if Sunday isn't complete without Holy Communion.
No, it's deeply, deeply moving. And it's interesting. We get a lot of our church is growing quickly, and a lot of the folks that come to us are people who are looking for roots. You know, they've been to churches where they have a very strong ministry of the Word, but the services tend to be a little bit commercialized, and often some people just kind of feel as though they want to kind of go back to bedrock and kind of put their roots down into something that goes right back to the very first centuries. And so we get a lot of young people who come to us looking for that.
Well, that's an exciting thing about coming to the Incarnation, is that it is a church that's bringing dynamic young people into the faith community. And many people might think of an old mainline church, oh, it's just a bunch of old people who are kind of on their last gasp, but there is a real vitality that you have cultivated in the church and have the wonderful traditional service, but also offer this very powerful contemporary service that's really
we do, and that's really been a joy for us. It's quite similar to the old traditional service, but there's some changes that are made. The ministers don't wear the special robes, and the music is all contemporary. They have a fantastic band, which is really just they really are something.
More praise music instead of traditional hymns.
Exactly, and I must say that's got a huge appeal, especially among younger people. It's hard to generalize about any particular generation. People of one age have different
both
tastes.
services, and I'm pleased that there are young people in the very traditional high church traditional service that find it very enriching too. So.
Yeah, so you've got a bit of a variety there. So you kind of appeal to different longings in people. But what's fun is it is, despite the fact that we have 7 services a Sunday, it is really one community. And we're becoming baby central. We've got loads and loads of little ones at the moment, which is really fun.
Well, that's fabulous because that is the future of Christianity. Christianity is really only one generation deep. Without new people coming into the church and reinvigorating, a church ages and dies.
Absolutely, and I think it has been a problem for mainline churches as a whole, in that they tend to be behind the times, and they're often laying on things that they think are going to appeal to young people because they appealed to them when they were young, and they often realize that they're kind of always just missing the mark. We tried in Incarnation to listen very carefully to the young themselves and to kind of help them, encourage them to lead. And of course, one of the things that's been a real joy for us is that we've been throwing off a huge number of ministers, of candidates for holy orders.
I mean, the nickname for Church of the Incarnation is Church of the Ordination.
Well, that's right.
Because you're literally mentoring up exciting new priests to come into the ministry.
They have been a most remarkable group of people, and they're now out and about doing fantastic things, either working in churches themselves, or starting churches, or in some cases in the universities. We've got one of them at Yale. He's just finished his doctorate at Yale. I think he's another one's at Notre Dame. We've got they're a bright bunch.
Well, it is really a pleasure and it's a joy to be at a church where there's a strong intellectual undergirding for the Christian faith, which of course is based on pure faith and not necessarily your education, but education with faith makes a powerful mix.
It does, and I think we put quite a big emphasis on the making of disciples too. So people, I mean, because what I tell people when we have a new membership class, I said, look, if you're interested in coming to a church where you just kind of go now and then, and you have very low expectations in terms of making friends or developing your own sense of your own commitment to Christ and growing in Christ, and just want a kind of a place to hang your hat, we are not the church for you. So we try to get everybody involved. We've got huge numbers of ministries, especially among young people, kids and the poor. And we try to get as many of our people who join the parish involved in that as quickly as we can.
Well, and that's been a meaningful thing, and I think that's always an effort to keep engaging people and providing opportunities for people to serve and grow in faith.
Well, and the church sits physically in a very interesting place. It's on the, it sits on the edge of these quite radically different neighborhoods. So we have, we sit very close to Roseland Homes, which is a largely African-American housing development, which is very, very low income. We sit by Oak Lawn, which is a very interesting neighborhood in its own terms, by Highland Park. So you've got kind of all kinds of different dynamics there. And it's a great church to kind of pull people from different backgrounds together into common service. So we're very involved, for example, in North Dallas High School, where a lot of the kids there are fatherless, effectively fatherless. Many of them homeless. So we run a program called Incarnation House for Homeless Teens. We run mentoring programs in the high school, both for boys. It's called Man Up Men's Mentoring. They meet every week with a, it's largely someone who's basically doing the sorts of things a father would do if a father were on the scene with a young man. And we've recently started the Ladies of Leadership, which is a kind of program for young women who are getting mentored by older women to guide them and encourage them in their work and to help them to kind of become successful. We run a program at Maya Angelou Home for Pregnant Teens. We've recently been partnering with other churches, especially African American churches in the neighborhood. So we're part of the Roseland Partners, which is helping to run a new community center in Roseland Homes, the housing project. We feed the homeless. It just goes on and on and on. We have reading buddies, folks that are teaching little kids in most of the local schools around us how to read to a grade 3 level.
Yeah, I've participated in that program, and it's meaningful. I think one of the things, sometimes people who are dissatisfied with maybe their current church home feels like the staff of the church are siphoning off most of the money. So it's kind of a predatory church environment where the pastor is soaking up the bulk of the resources and really not sharing God's bounty that people have given the church with the community, like Church of the Incarnation does, where the staff is on a more reasonable salary level and really committed to sharing God's love out in the community.
Yes, I mean, we try to make a dollar go a long way, that's for sure. And we find that our parishioners see that, they're part of it, they're engaged in these ministries themselves, and so that they have a lot of personal sense of ownership in them. And so as a result, they're very generous. So people a lot of our parishioners are very sacrificial in terms of their giving and in terms of their desire to kind of make a meaningful difference in the life of the poor and to help people meet Jesus Christ.
Well, and that's so wonderful, and I've found it very enriching. I've been going to the church now for 6 years and have just found it a very positive faith experience. And I hope that you'll think about coming and paying a visit. The special services are wonderful, but every Sunday is a blessing. And coming to the 5 o'clock contemporary service, or even more special, the wonderful choral evensong that goes on through the church year is a wonderful way to get introduced to traditional liturgy without tying up your Sunday morning, which may be devoted to your current church home.
Well, that's right. And it is a church which attracts a lot of, if you like music, it's a good church. And if you're looking for friends, it's a good church. I mean, I think probably the two things that people talk about most when they come to the church is that they were so surprised that a big church would be as friendly as it is. And the other thing is that people who really love music love that church.
I love that the congregation really sings.
They do.
And they really participate in the liturgy. And that's so strong. And it was really special Saturday night coming to the Easter Vigil. And I brought my girlfriend's 2 children, and they really enjoyed the service and found it very dynamic, which for teenagers to love a nearly 2-hour service is really special.
No, they're not all 2 hours.
No, that's just a special service. The regular service is an hour.
I think that one was actually 2.5 hours, David.
Yeah, it was wonderful. But and a quality fill time, but no, the normal service is about an hour.
About an hour, yeah.
And it's just wonderful, enriching. And the music is fantastic.
Yeah.
And, it's great to see the choir director so intent on really delivering a top-notch musical performance.
It is, I think it has been said to be possibly the finest church choir in the southwest of the United States. They are amazing. But what's fun about them is that they're a very prayerful group.
They really are.
I mean, a bunch of them are professionals, but they pray before every service, and the choir director he's really a kind of a spiritual leader as well as a fantastic musician.
Well, and the wonderful thing, I try to position myself in the church so that I get to walk through the choir. The choir is up front in the traditional choir setting, so I get to walk through the choir while they're singing at Holy Communion, and it's just a wonderful experience. If you get a chance to come a couple of times and figure out where you need to be and get the full musical experience.
And on the contemporary side, you've got Becky Middleton has joined us as the band leader, and she's a professional contemporary singer. You can YouTube
does a great job.
Yeah, Rebecca Middleton. She is amazing, and she's really kind of doing fantastic new things for us. She just surprises us every Sunday.
Yeah, the contemporary service.
And a wonderful, wonderful band.
When I have commitments that keep me from going to church on Sunday morning, I come to the 5 o'clock contemporary service. They've got the same great band as the morning service, but there's plenty of room for you to come and visit. And wonderful, strong minister there that conducts the service. And
Ryan Waller, he's just fantastic.
Really and he's another example of you mentoring up a young priest. And he just recently became ordained. And what a wonderful addition to the family of clergy.
He sure is. And it's quite fun too. And Ryan is a very dynamic speaker, so he's well worth checking out.
Yeah. So 5 o'clock Sunday evenings, you can go to your regular church service, and when you really want to get the full dose of what Christian worship, in my mind, is, come to the 5 o'clock service and check it out and enjoy it. So go to incarnation.org and come see us on McKinney Avenue. Reaching out and helping the poor is so important. And as you know, I'm a huge promoter of loving your neighbors yourself by both gift of time and service. And there are giving opportunities here. Of course, I always promote the organization that I'm so involved with, Greater Dallas Coalition, and their effort to reach out to the poor and impoverished. Please go to their website. We'd love to see your support. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to come to one of our monthly coalition meetings and hear the good news of people making a real difference in South Dallas through feeding and nurturing people and bringing people to Christ. So, always good, and I hate to tout somebody else.
Oh, no, I mean, Greater Dallas Coalition is a fantastic organization, so I'm happy to be associated with touting that.
Well, and the Episcopal Church is a real strong supporter through the Diocese of Dallas and our wonderful Bishop, George Sumner. Now, you're a bishop yourself.
That's true.
And you originally served in Canada.
I did. I was the Bishop of Saskatchewan, which was a big diocese, which is well north of North Dakota and Montana in Canada. About half of the people, the Episcopalians there, are Cree Indians who live on Indian reserves. In many cases, very isolated Indian reserves. We used to joke that the diocese, the area that I supervised, we had about 70 different churches scattered across the north, and one of the things we used to say was, which is true, that it was twice the size of Germany with 265th the population. So we had a lot more deer than we had people, and but it's a great place. The culture there is wonderful, and I really, really enjoyed serving amongst the Cree people. And of course, the Southern Rim were all kind of prairie farmers, and they were just wonderful, wonderful Christians as well. I was there for 17 years all told, and I spent a wonderful time with them, and still think of them very, very fondly. But
what led you to come to Dallas and invigorate Incarnation so much?
Well, I like to say it's the Holy Spirit. I just got a call. It turned out that the person who was the interim minister when they were doing their search had a friend who was a friend of mine, and so he connected us up, and they gave me a call, and I came down. I kind of felt that I was a round peg in a round hole in that place. It just seemed to be a kind of real good fit. Our kids were 11 and 13 at that point, and so that was probably a good age for a move, and we thought that they had experienced small town living, and it was probably good for them just to expand their experiences by coming into the city and to get a good education here, which they did, and they're both now off in college. So it was a very good move for the family.
Well, and a real blessing, and in many ways, having experience as a bishop has changed your style of operating the church, because one of the things that's so powerful is that you give your young clergy pulpit time and don't monopolize the pulpit like many leaders of large churches preach every Sunday and rarely share the pulpit with anybody else. So you've mentored these young priests by allowing them to conduct the service and give sermons, which
well, that's
is so
right.
powerful.
We figure that every church has its own specific calling. Some of the things all churches need to do, but I think particular churches are probably called to particular things. And our 4 points of mission are to serve God in the great tradition of the church, to serve the poor, to raise up leaders, or to make disciples, and also finally to raise up leaders for the renewal of the church. And we just figured that since we have so many young people joining the church and so many of them are offering themselves for the ministry, that one of our jobs is to be a kind of, you could call it a teaching hospital or a little sort of mini ministry college, just to get them up and going and out the door to serve. So that's been one of the things that we've really kind of it's been not so much duty as pleasure.
Yeah, well, it is wonderful, and it provides variety to get a different perspective, viewpoints, and of course the young clergy are making a strong effort to make a strong presentation during their opportunity to preach. So
well, I have a friend, Nicky Gumble, who's the senior pastor at Holy Trinity Brompton in London. We were college together, and he's got it's an enormous church which has 12 pastors that stay on staff, and then 12 that circulate in for training, and he puts them in the pulpit all the time. And I said, well, do the people in the congregation not get annoyed that they're getting all of these, amateurs, if you like, rather than because Nicky's a wonderful, wonderful preacher. And he said, no, they're not annoyed if they see them getting better. And I thought that was a sign of kind of real spiritual maturity amongst that congregation, that they saw their role wasn't just simply to receive, but actually they themselves were participating in helping to train up these leaders.
Yeah, well, that's a powerful thing. And again, we just love to see you on Sunday, either at the morning services or the contemporary service in the evening. It's always so enriching, and, you know, what can we say except, gosh, don't miss out. Come enjoy the richness of the traditional liturgy.
Well, absolutely, and I just kind of encourage everybody to come check it out, and also check out both ends, the contemporary and the traditional, and generally you'll find something that fits you.
Yeah, well, and it is good to have that dynamic duo.
Yeah.
And the traditional service is far from dead. I mean, it's very lively, very invigorating, and you know, one of the things I love is that the congregation really engages in the service and sings the hymn and recites the creeds vigorously, and really has a lot of intentionality. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed the first time I came to Incarnation, was I was really shocked at how participatory the congregation was, unlike some mainline churches where everybody's sitting on their hands and not talking, not participating in the service, and where the preacher is on the PA system and he's the only person talking. And when you have a fabulous choir that sings so well, it's almost shocking that the congregation duels with them to see who can be heard the most. And of course, being back in the congregation has a little advantage in that
they have the numbers.
But, of course, you don't see that because you're up front right next to the choir.
That's true.
And enjoying the richness of the musical performance. But back in the audience, when you have a really good hymn that really engages people, it is just a lot of fun to have the dueling between the congregation and the choir, just all singing praises to God. So I hope you found this meaningful and will study and go to Church of the Incarnation. Come to their website, incarnation.org, and have a great week. And wherever you worship, let God's love shine through you out into the community, doing good works and giving to others to be the light of Christ in the world. And, you know, nothing makes Christianity look worse than people that profess to be Christians who don't ever love their neighbor as themselves. So I hope you've enjoyed today's segment. I hope you'll share it with your friends, and have a great day. And let's celebrate this Easter season as it goes. Take care, and thank you for joining us.